All right, chapter 42. After the meeting with Ms. Patel, we doubled down on Operation Save Jose, turning the front desk into an assembly line. Hank and Fred looked up the addresses of politicians, while Lupe and I wrote letters. Mrs. Q and Mrs. T stuffed envelopes, and Billy Bob licked stamps. At school on Friday, Lupe continued writing letters during recess, while I sat in my special lesson with Mrs. Welch. The recess tutorials were going well, especially now that we moved on from grammar to figurative language. Today, Mrs. Welch was going over personification and metaphors. I like this one you wrote, Mrs. Welch said, picking up my latest essay from her desk. My parents may be on side streets now, but one day they'll be on the main road. It's just something they say in Chinese, I blushed, slightly embarrassed I had written that down. Well, it's a good metaphor, Mrs. Welch said. And I liked this. Some of the immigrants who come to the motel on Wednesdays, they have it even harder than us. Some of them haven't yet found the side streets. They are just forging their way through thick brush, with only the stars to guide them, Mrs. Welch read. She reached up to touch her cheek. Was she crying? As she handed me back my paper, I looked up to see the grade, expecting another C. But this time, it was an A minus. The minus is for some minor grammatical mistakes, she said. Otherwise, it would have been an A. An A minus from Mrs. Welch. Wow. That was like an A plus plus from a normal teacher. A smile stretched across my face as I clutched my paper proudly. Lupe was thrilled for me, and we ran all the way home, our arms swinging wildly, excited to get back to Operation Save Jose. By noon on Saturday, stacks of letters lay on the front desk, ready to go out. There was a pile from congressmen, congresswomen, and U.S. senators, a pile for the state assembly and state senate, and a third pile to mayors and county supervisors. Dear Senator, Jose Garcia, age 38, is currently being held in San Diego County Jail, awaiting deportation proceedings. Please do not let immigration deport Mr. Garcia. He is a husband, father, skilled and hardworking Californian. He has an 11-year-old daughter. Deporting him will separate him from his family. He has good moral character and no criminal record. He has been in this country for more than 8 years and has worked in the fields in the Central Valley picking grapes, as a pizza delivery man, and as a cable repairman in a motel in Anaheim, California. Mr. Garcia is an honest and hard-working immigrant who has contributed greatly to the California economy. We urge you, kind Senator, from the bottom of our hearts, to please grant Jose Garcia an adjustment of status so that he can be reunited with his family. His trial is in 4 weeks. Please contact us at the number below if you have any questions. Thank you. Sincerely, Californians Against Jose Garcia Deportation. It was Hank's idea to call ourselves the Californians Against Jose Garcia Deportation. He said the letters would sound more powerful if they came from a group. And what a group we were. Hank even ordered us t-shirts with artwork designed by Lupe. Meanwhile, immigrants continued swinging by the Cala Vista, attracted to our sign. To each customer who came in, we gave a copy of the flyer of Lupe's mom. The petition Lupe and I created was getting longer and longer, thanks in part to all the help from our Kids for Kids members. We made an extra petition just for the motel customers. To our great delight, our customers all signed their names. My dad happily offered discounts for the night, but to his surprise, Some of them didn't want discounts. They insisted on paying full price for the rooms. The immigrants came from all over, from Mexico and the Dominican Republic to as far away as the Philippines and Kenya. Hank was tickled pink to see immigrants who looked like him. My people, he warmly welcomed them. On Sunday, the cash register was filled again. Hey, look, I said, showing my parents and Hank the stacks of cash. We called up all the paper investors, including Mr. Cooper. He was busy on a conference call, but said he'd look at the numbers and call us back later. A few of the kids from Kids for Kids came to join the Operation Save Jose effort, including Jason, who stopped by after his cooking class. When Lupe saw Jason, she moved her body across the front desk to try to cover up the flyers of her mom. "What's he doing here?" she whispered to me. "I heard that," Jason said, picking up an envelope. He reached for a letter to stuff into the envelope, but accidentally reached for the wrong pile and picked up a flyer. "No!" Lupe said, yanking it away. I looked at the two of them, puzzled. "We have to talk," Lupe said, and took me by the arm, pulling me to our room and closing the door behind her. "I don't want Jason over here, looking at that stuff about my mom. He and Mrs. Yao threw me and my mom out of their house when I was 8. I listened in stunned silence as Lupe told me what had happened 3 years before. Her mother used to clean Mr. Yao's house. While she cleaned, Jason and Lupe would hang out in his room. They were good friends then. One day, Mrs. Yao came home and found the two of us rolling around on the floor. We were just arm wrestling, but she grabbed me and pulled me into her study. She said she was disgusted with me, Lupe said, and she fired me and my mom. I put my hands to my mouth. I thought Jason would stand up for me, but he didn't do anything. He didn't even come out of his room. Lupe sat down on the bed and pointed at the door. He says he wants help. He said he wants to help, but where was he then? I gazed at the door. I could feel her anger melting a hole in the wood and knew exactly how she felt. It was how I felt when Mrs. Yao pulled Jason out of the motel room that day. "I'm so sorry, Lupe." She looked up from my cherry blossom bedspread. "Please, can you just ask him to leave?" she said. I nodded. Of course. I left her in the room and asked, as gently as I could, that Jason go. He looked back at me, welling with hurt. What'd I do? I shook my head, not knowing quite how to tell him. "You just have to go," I said again. Jason stomped out of the front office. As he threw open the door, he shouted, "You'll be sorry, Mia Tang. I have feelings too." I put my head down on the front desk, feeling a little bad for kicking Jason out. But as I peeked over at my best friend, standing by the door of my bedroom, I hoped she knew I would always have her back.